The date of January the 6th went down in recent history of South Ossetia as the Bloody Christmas. January the 6th, 1991, is the second stage of the armed aggression of Georgia against the people of South Ossetia in 1989-1992. The Georgian leadership brought into Chinval police units, the National Guard, Georgian militants dressed in police uniforms, as well as criminals and drug addicts specially amnestied to capture South Ossetia. Only about 3,000 people with military equipment who began to search, arrests, robberies, killings of the Ossets, arson of residential buildings.
The armed action undertaken by the Sviat Georgia against South Ossetia on the 6th of January 1991 was previously carefully and comprehensively prepared. In January 1991, 29 years ago, on the night before Christmas, 3,000 armed people were brought into Цхинвал from the territory of Georgia. Some of them were employees of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the GSSR, and some were prisoners released from prisons and dressed in police uniforms. They occupied the central part of Chinval and began unmotivated arrests of passers-by, shooting at unarmed citizens. A case of emergency and curfew were imposed.
The state of emergency and curfew were imposed only in the town of Chinval and the Dzau region, where the majority were the Ossets. And in the other Chinval, Znaur and Leningor regions of South Ossetia, the emergency regime was not imposed, despite months of requests from South Ossetia. This allowed the Georgian armed forces to commit hitherto inconceivable atrocities. And the internal troops of the USSR Ministry of the Internal Affairs stationed in Chinval were only obliged to come to the villages that had been attacked and bring the bodies of victims of Georgian fascism to Chinval. Attempts to bring living people from the attacked villages were in most cases unsuccessful, since near the entrance to Chinval, peaceful Ossets from the USSR Ministry of the Internal Affairs transport were transferred right to the hands of Georgian armed groups, and after brutal torture indicted the death penalty. The most famous example is the Redvi tragedy of March 1991, where 12 Ossetian civilians were betrayed by Georgian armed groups, and after torture, in particular burning parts of the bodies of living people, broken bones of their arms and legs, were buried alive near the Georgian village of Redvi. Incomparable cruelty. By the morning, the town center had already been occupied by the Georgians. Soon, the first victims appeared. Armed confrontation began right on the streets of the capital. Georgian gangs were knocked out of Chinval. However, having left the town, Georgian militants occupied the dominant heights and fired at residential areas with guns and rocket launchers point blank. The economic, energy, water and information blockade has begun. As a result of Georgian terror, only from January the 6th to September the 1st, 1991, 209 people were killed, 460 civilians were wounded, 150 people went missing.
The morning of January the 6th, 1991 can be compared to the morning of August the 8th, 2008. If in August people were shocked by the fact that Georgian tanks were blasting down the town streets, then in January Chinval was occupied by Georgian police. The sight was as phantasmagoric as it was absolutely unexpected. Police barriers stood at all intersections of Chinval, some of them with shepherd dogs. The town center was completely blocked. Just as later in August, both ordinary people and the invaders had the feeling at first that Chinval had lost its will and ability to resist. However, both sides, fortunately, were mistaken.
The morning of January the 6th was a period of waiting for compromises. For some reason, it seemed to everyone that the Tbilisi leadership would be phoned from Moscow any minute and the Georgian police would be withdrawn. On that winter morning, people were preparing to celebrate Christmas. It was impossible to believe that anything bad could happen. And although people were anxious, no one expected that blood would be shed. Discontent poured into peaceful actions. The spontaneously formed improvised self-defense headquarters gathered several hundred young guys. They at one time, at their own peril and risk, concealed their hunting rifles and small caliber rifles from re-registration. Also, at the risk of freedom, several people purchased assault rifles and carbines, while the arms market was absolutely criminal those days. The headquarters decided to attack the Georgian bandit police units the next day, January the 7th. On January the 7th, 1991, a curious detail came to the light. Almost the entire Georgian part of the population of Chinval had secretly left the town the day before, having previously equipped the attics of their houses with sniper points which were subsequently occupied by police killers. Moreover, not a single Georgian warned his fellow countrymen Ossets about the threatened danger, and this despite the fact that in the town representatives of these two nationalities were sometimes connected by closely related, namely unfriendly relations. For example, the artists of the Georgian troupe of the South Ossetian State Drama Theatre did not say a word to their Ossetian colleagues about the impending invasion.
Later it turned out that the Georgian leadership convinced ethnic Georgians that after restoring order they would return to the town liberated from the Ossets. Subsequently, these people will be declared refugees from the Chinval region. Although they do not fall into the category of refugees or internally displaced persons, since no one expelled them or forced them to leave their homes. By the way, the standard of living of ethnic Georgians in South Ossetia during the Soviet period was much higher than the average for autonomy. Thus, it is safe to say that this secret cowardly departure was a deliberate choice that had nothing to do with forced flight, and in fact was aiding in the subsequent murders and other serious crimes. However, the same charges can also be brought against the leadership of the USSR Ministry of Internal Affairs. Generals Malyushkin and Voronov, the troops subordinate to them during the days of unthinkable arbitrariness over the unarmed South Ossetian population hid in the barracks, as if what was happening did not concern them.
The first shock was replaced by the need to act. The townspeople approached the police pickets and tried to shame the police. Sometimes it worked, but among the policemen there were also members of Georgian nationalist organizations, as well as especially for this event released criminals. One could recognize such pseudo-policemen in appearance, for the most part untidy, unshaven, rude in communication. And the stories that some of them had epaulets of different dignity are by no means a legend.
Soon the events became irreversible. Grigory Kochiev, an employee of the Chinval militia department, tried to intercede for the arrested boys and was shot at point-blank range. On January the 7th, a 17-year-old lad, Murat Gaboev, a resident of the village Sneg, Цхинвал district of South Ossetia, was killed by Georgian gun police in Цхинвал. Vyacheslav Pakiaev, an employee of one of the state institutions, was killed by an autonomous gunfire. On the night of January the 8th, defending their hometown, a 30-year-old resident of Цхинвал, Inel Tasoev, and a 35-year-old Rosif Skhavrebov were killed. On January the 8th, Georgians did not spare even the 87-year-old man, Erdi Hubaev, a resident of the village Eredvi, who happened to be unlucky to live in a Georgian village. Among the wounded was Ivan Skhavrebov, a 65-year-old man, a candidate of historical sciences. He received a wound in the region of the heart, but fortunately survived. From that moment on, the power of the word was replaced by the power of weapons. Then, for the first time, the Ossetian side began open hostilities. In total, from January the 6th to the 8th, 27 people received gunshot wounds.
The decision to attack the bandit police was not easy after all. In Soviet terms, even passive resistance to a manual form of policemen was fraught with years of imprisonment, and firing at them meant signing a death sentence. True, there were their own nuances. Among the aggressors, there happened to be decent people as well, really law enforcement officers, who until the last moment did not know either target or the place of the operation. Later it became known that police officers gathered all over Georgia in the town of Gori. Then they were put on buses not informing about their purpose and route of the trip and taken to Chinval. Some policemen made contact with local guys, exchanged the guns for civilian clothes and left the town. There was an extraordinary case of meeting of colleagues, an Austrian Georgian, who served together in Afghanistan. The Georgian policeman asked his friend to take him out of the town. By the morning of January the 7th, information about new wounded captured among the Ossets came again. Later, several young men spent more than a year in Georgian prisons without charge and trial.
From noon on January the 7th, the Georgians opened fire on the barricades again. It was impossible to hesitate further, and the self-defense fighters launched an attack on the gang's position from several directions at once. For a short period of time, aggressors were put to fight. In a panic, throwing their dogs, losing their heads, they hurried to save their lives. The thoroughbred dogs, abandoned by militant warriors, huddled under the seats of in a panic abandoned buses and whined plaintively. Almost all of them found shelter in the homes of the Ossets, who turned out to be much more caring owners for dogs. The result of this day was disappointing for the Georgian side. In addition to the losses listed, they killed several dozen people. Exactly how many will remain forever unknown. Hiding the exact number of their victims has become a trademark of Georgia in any conflicts.
Those days, people had an extraordinary patriotic upsurge. The inhabitants of Chinval felt like a kind of partisans, since the example of the heroes of the Soviet underground was in the minds of every Soviet person. They were all educated by the system, so that at the subconscious level they were ready for action if the enemy suddenly comes to their country. Well, the youth did not even have to be persuaded. The age and underestimation of the danger themselves dictated the nature of the action. In addition, there was already a practice on November 23, 1989. So, in those January days, the young underground managed to steal the operational map of Цхинвал directly from the table of the Georgian chief, indicating the post, patrol routes and the names of the leaders. Of course, it was an amazing story that made its members heroes of the secret front. The only thing that upset is that the names of the participants remained secret. Then no one knew how the events would turn, and the punishment for the theft of a sufficiently important document could be serious. Later, such a feat no longer seemed unusual. More significant deeds and more significant heroes appeared.
During the first week, Georgian occupation units were squeezed around the perimeter of the town center. Every day, from the side of defenders of Chinval, there were attempts to slip into the zones of responsibility. The Georgian units could only move with significant combat guards. Arrogance was punishable. The morale of Georgian policemen also decreased significantly. There appeared killed and wounded among them. People were constantly waiting for an armed rebuff. Some of them understood the injustice of actions and characteristic profession of a policeman. Seeing how their disguised colleagues were engaged in arson of association houses and robberies, each of them acted at the call of conscience. Some were silent and carried out orders, others wrote reports of dismissal, and some simply left their post. There were such cases when policemen, instead of their weapons, asked to be transferred across the front line and went home.
Almost simultaneously with the events in Chinval, the same process took place in the Znaur district center, where the Tbilisi authorities introduced more than 20 buses with police, the fate of which was similar to the fate of invaders in the capital of South Ossetia. The battle lasted until dark. The town was liberated. In the evening, information was passed on the positions of self-defense fighters, or rather misinformation, that the center landed troops in Zau, which was instructed to disarm illegal armed groups, and therefore it was necessary to hide weapons and go home. Later, it turned out that the information about landing was a lie and was provocative. This incident caused a serious damage to the reputation of disinfectors, but one way or another, that evening the opportunity to clear the entire town of invaders was missed.
And so, taking advantage of the pause, the Georgians strengthened themselves in the town center on Theatre Square and at the crossroads of Stalin Street and Moscow Street. Under the control of the enemy were the buildings of the Regional Party Committee, Regional Executive Committee, the Internal Affairs Directorate, the State Security Committee, the State Drama Theatre and the Ariston Hotel.
On January the 7th, when it became clear that the events in South Ossetia would not be silenced, President of the USSR, Mikhail Gorbachev, signed a decree ordering the parties to cease hostilities and return to the original position in political terms. That is, cancel all decisions to change the status of South Ossetia on both sides. It is noteworthy that the decree was issued only after the aggressive side suffered the damage. The previous death of the peaceful Ossets did not make any impression on the country's top leadership.
Gorbachev's decree was greeted in South Ossetia with glee and enthusiasm, although in fact the Ossets were offered to turn themselves in to their executioners and torturers, and later come to terms with the fate that Tbilisi tried to impose by force. In addition, the near future will demonstrate that the Georgian leadership did not think to follow any instructions of the center. By the end of January, it became clear that the situation was hopeless for the Georgian authorities. Those January days of 1991 have changed a lot in our minds, it became clear that neither Gorbachev's decree ignored by Tbilisi nor the weak-willed local party functionaries would save the republic. And only the decisiveness of the defenders of Цхинвал and of all its inhabitants will make the Georgian leadership understand that the battle for Цхинвал and for all of South Ossetia has been lost by the Georgians.